So I gave an introduction to the history of the castle and our understanding of the site at the beginning. We've heard from Hamish about an interpretation of the piece of wood itself, how we know what we know about how this piece of wood was used in the castle, and Coralie's given us an oversight of efforts to date it dendrochronologically and then through wiggle match dating, which has given us this key information, which is the felling date of the wood, the fragment of alder which comes from the fabric of the castle. What does this mean for the castle of Old Wick? Well, it tells us that there was probably a period of renovation at the castle. We don't think that the fragment of alder tells us when the tower was built, but it does give us an insight into part of the story of the buildings. Now, we thought before we extracted the piece of timber that the feature in which it resided was part of a heating device within the castle called a hanging lum. A hanging lum is a particular kind of fireplace which, unlike normal fireplaces which are built within a recess within the wall, and then the flue, that's the tube which evacuates the smoke, is within the fabric of the wall, hanging lums are either built against the wall surface, or suspended within a space. Now we think the situation at Old Wick is the former. It's built against the wall with the flue constructed against the inside face, which is why the sockets with the fragment of alder is probably part of that construction. So we know that we have a specific kind of heating device at the castle, which is great. We know when that was built, and we know that it probably replaces a very similar heating device. Now, can we tie those dates, that 1515 to 50 with 98% confidence, can we tie that to known historical events at the castle? Well, this period of the history of the castle sees at least 7 different owners of the castle. Some of them are in charge for a year, some of them are in charge for around a decade, but it's a very patchy record, so it'd be quite difficult to pin down precisely, but there is one episode of the history of the castle which jumps out. In 1517, Christian Sutherland, who was the Lady of Berrydale, reached a settlement with her kinsman, who was William Sutherland of Duffus in the northeast of Scotland. And that settlement said that both parties would agree that William Sutherland would compensate Christian for having played a part in the murder of her son, Charles, as well as the destruction and the looting of Castle of Old Wick. Now, just to remind you of those datings, the felling date for the timber suggests that the alder was inserted into the wall between 1515 and 1550 with 98% confidence or thereabouts. On the one hand, we have that, and on the other hand, we have this evidence which suggests that at some point after 1517, repairs were undertaken at the castle using the money that was compensated to Christian for the violence that William Sutherland did to her family and her estate. Now, what's interesting about that settlement is that we don't know when exactly the money was transacted, but we do know that 4 years later, in 1521, Christian's son was back at Castle of Old Wick issuing charters, which is a kind of document, and that ceremony probably took place in the tower. It's the best place that it could have taken place. So, to cap it all off, we don't know exactly when. We don't know with 100% confidence when, if there's an historical event which could be tied to the felling date that Coralie and Hamish have reached with supportive work, but we do think that it may be related to the settlement that Christian Sutherland reached with her kinsman, relating to the murder of her own child and the destruction and the looting of the castle.